Everybody, I feel like I've turned the page. I feel like I've turned the page. Uh, I had the camera on. I got the microphone on. I got everything set up. It looks like it is working. It looks like it's actually working. So, folks, we're streaming this out. We're on Rumble right now. We're streaming out to YouTube, Facebook, X. I want to encourage you, use the chat. I want to see if the comments come through, see if things really work. Um, if you get a chance, follow us over at manananomas.com. Like, subscribe, all those fun things. Today's a changing point for me. And I don't want to jump on a train and be like, oh, well, but I got to tell you, it's been weighing on me for a little bit. I was thinking I got to take things up a notch. I should probably be more forthright about some of my ideas, where they come from, how I do things. It's not fair to give people a taste of information and think that they're going to be fine with it, because if they don't know the origin, if they don't know the background, they can't. From the very beginning of Manana No Mas, back in 2008, sitting in a rented office in Albuquerque, New Mexico, people would come in and they would say, oh, we were thinking about using you for our business launch. And I'd say, okay, well, we're going to do this, 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 this. And I would, list off a grocery list of things we were going to do. And then they wouldn't become customers, right? Because in their heads, they're like, he just told us everything he's going to do. Duh. Right. And so then they would go and they would try and do, I was new at this business, right? So I didn't understand what I was doing at the time. And they would run off. And then I would hear, like, a year later from someone off the street, they would say, oh, well, I talked to so-and-so and they said, you don't know what you're doing. And I was like, but they're not a customer. Like, what are we talking about? They're not a customer. Well, they said that you told them to, and it didn't work. Well, of course it didn't work. I've got decades of experience in doing this stuff. They thought they were going to come in and get a shopping list from me and go try to execute on their own and find success. That doesn't make any sense. That's like looking something up on YouTube to fix the internal components of the engine on your car, right? And you go, oh, well, the technician said I just need to replace these timing chains. And then even if you could figure out how to replace the timing chains, do you understand the internal theories of a combustion engine? Do you understand that the timing has to be on a certain tooth and that the cam has to line up with the crank in a certain way, and that you have to get the gaskets in place in a certain way to make sure that things don't fall apart? No, you probably don't, right? And so you're asking for trouble if you don't rely on experts to get you through the next step. Unless, of course, you have the time, the dedication, the patience to make yourself an expert in that space. And I think a lot of times I jump on these lives and I say things very happenstance, especially in the WordPress space when I'm talking about developing packages for companies. I'll say, oh, well, we're just going to add Lifter LMS. We're going to put a CRM tool in there. We're going to this, we're going to that. And we're talking about software. And maybe we go too quickly, or maybe people don't understand the internal process on how I'm thinking things need to go. Now, I'm making this I almost want to call this a clean slate. Going forward. Simple things. Like I put on a shirt today to make this. I'm not sitting here in my t-shirt, right? I put on a shirt today to make this. We're going to take things up a notch, and we're going to try and be a little more informative, a little more direct, and quite honestly, you're going to get more of my opinion than I've been able to share in the past. I kept monitoring myself. I kept thinking, oh, I don't want to be too bold. Oh, I don't want to be too direct. Oh, I don't want to be too crass. That's not, it's me. I'm a diplomatic kind of person. I have coworkers in the space that tell me, man, can you take this call? You're so diplomatic. Can you take this call with this client? And I do it, right? Because it's my nature. But there's a time where we need to say, this is it. It's all over the news. It's everywhere. I just want to tell you, yesterday when I saw the news that Charlie Kirk had been assassinated, I originally thought it was AI. I thought it was a joke. I thought it was some kind of a spoof. I was like, and then immediately the video pops up in my X feed. This dude getting shot in the neck. His throat squirts out like a fountain. I thought, is this AI? Like, is this what AI's done now? I didn't think it was serious. And then about 10 minutes later, I was like, oh, no, this is real. This is real. This is real. This just happened. Um, I've had a lot of people in my life die around me. Uh, Both my parents are dead. I used to race motorcycles. A lot of people I used to race with are dead. Um, and I didn't go in the military, so I don't have the military thing to use to say, oh well, I've seen a lot of death in this world, right? So I don't have that. Um, there's only a couple of people that when they passed, it really affected me immediately. One was a young man named Nate Betts. Nate Betts was a technician under my care as I was a training manager at Ducati North America. Nate Betts, after I left Ducati, it was like right after I left Ducati, Nate Betts passed away. And it was by surprise. This kid was super fit. He was young. He was like a bodybuilder, super fit, and his heart gave out and he died. His wife, sweetheart lady, still in contact with her, not like best friends. I always thought that would be a little creepy, right? To like slide in, into, especially I'm a married guy, but you know, I thought that would be a little creepy to like just start showing up at her house all the time and being like, are you okay? Are you okay? But we stayed in touch. She rides bicycles. I ride bicycles. We both ride in the Great Cycle Challenge every September. Just things like that, you know. So there's a little bit of a connection, but not a overly creepy connection. And but when he passed away, it hit me deep, hit me really deep. I can't explain the pain that. Now, here's a weird one for you. I don't really go to funerals. I really don't feel sorry for the people that die at all. Uh, Charlie's dead. He's dead. Nate's dead. He's dead. My mom's dead. She's dead. My dad's dead. He's dead. Dead. Right? Like, so I don't feel sorry for them. They're dead. They paid the price. They're out. Um, I'm up for a shortcut home whenever he calls me. So, you know, I'm a person of faith. Whenever God calls me, I'm out of here. I'm done. I'm done. And don't feel sorry for me because I'm done. I'm out. Um, if you're on the list in the book of life, your last breath here on earth is your first breath in heaven. You, everything that you were worried about is done, gone. That is such a foreign idea to so many people. But for me, I don't feel sorry for the dead at all. Like I barely ever go to funerals. I don't like funerals. I used to go when I was younger, and I used to kind of like think that I was making connections or making people feel better or whatever. But it's not for the person that's dead. I pray for the people left behind. I like in this case, Charlie Kirk's wife, his kids. I made the mistake yesterday of saying the girls in a thing that I wrote. It's not the girls. My understanding is he had a son and a daughter, and I got to tell you, when I found out that Charlie passed yesterday, it threw a kink in my whole day. It listen to me, like I'm complaining. I have a kink in my day, but I couldn't work anymore. I was in the middle of writing a newsletter for my company that goes out on a weekly basis to people that are in our network, and I had some announcements to make. It was about, I do about 5 podcasts a week, and so I was going to promote the podcasts. And I've got a new pricing strategy that I'm looking to unveil for Manana No Mas for some of our startup packages. And so I was going to start promoting that. We also have a new course that we've launched on WP Agency Academy, WPAgencyAcademy.com. So I was looking forward to launching these things in this newsletter. And as I was trying to get my marketing hat on to finish this newsletter and get this out yesterday, this news came through. And I don't know what came over me, but I just deleted the email. And I had this overwhelming sense of Charlie's just been killed. I never met Charlie. I never met him. But for some reason, I have a connection to Charlie. Like the work that he's done, working with the young people. I volunteer with college age kids all the time. I'm trying to launch an apprenticeship program that benefits college age kids. There's such a resonance in his work, his messaging, and what he's done, and the impact that he's had in the space. I feel like I know him. I never met him, but I feel like I know him. And his passing, especially the way that he passed, is it made me stop. Like I said, I was in the middle of writing this email for my company. Delete. Just deleted the email. And instead, I wrote an email that said, anything that I was going to say today is not important. Charlie's been shot. Charlie's gone. I'm heartbroken. And as I'm writing the email, I feel myself starting to tear up and get like super emotional about this. I hear about people dying all the time. I mean, that poor girl got slaughtered on the light rail, fast rail, whatever they call that thing. I think her name's Elena, something like that. And everyone's making, there's people making GoFundMe accounts for the dude that did it. Like, this is how messed up we are. Within minutes of Charlie being shot, without even the word that he had been dead yet, there were people on TV saying he brought it upon himself with hate speech. People that say that kind of stuff are uneducated. Because if you do the research, if you actually look at what Charlie did, it was not hate speech at all. He was super respectful. He met and debated with people that disagreed with him, and never once did he advocate for violence or to down talk to anybody or to. He had so much patience, because for me, I would be like, "Don't be an idiot," and he wouldn't like that. Like, for instance, if you take a look at the Daily Wire guys, they're a little more direct about that's a stupid idea, or you're a moron, or like when you think about how Matt Walsh would deal with somebody sometimes in these debate situations. Charlie wouldn't like that. He was more gentle, more kind in the way that he dealt with people, and off he went. And so that's causing me to switch things up a bit. So as you come into this live today, you're going to say, "Oh, Kurt's wearing a shirt today." Yeah, Kurt's wearing a shirt today. The sun's not even up yet. I have a busy day. If I were to look at this, we're doing a podcast a podcast at 10 o'clock. That's for Manana No Mas. A podcast at 11 o'clock. That's for WP Tonic. I'm running the Ask Me Anything call, which is that live tutorial call I do for Lifter LMS. And then we're doing an office hours call at 2 o'clock. Office hours for Lifter LMS is for people that are subscribed that need support, assistance, and we do some added value stuff there. And I do that at 2 o'clock today. So I've got, 4 live interviews scheduled for just today. And I wanted to make sure I got this live done so that, like, I got up early, sun's not even up, and I'm knocking this out today. So I wanted to make sure that I got to you. So I realize it's a live stream. I'm not seeing any comments come in yet, but I am early. I'm very early, right? So for the people that are on Facebook right now watching, I see you. I see you. People on Rumble watching, I see you. If you want, go ahead and drop in a comment. Hopefully I see it come through on the Rumble side of things. So we've got that going on. Now, a couple of things. There's a lot going on in internal thinking, how things I think are shaping up. I had projected about 2 years ago, I said, okay, this AI stuff is cool, but it's freaking me out. Like, I think there's too many people thinking that it's an easy button. Now, remember, a lot of what I talk about is in the software space, right? A lot of what I talk about is digital marketing spaces. And so people were really talking about, hey, I'm going to build this with AI. I'm going to build that with AI. I'm going to do this with AI. And I'm like, I think you are crazy. And I would say it live, like on podcasts. And I said, I think the most valuable thing in the very near future is going to be establishing yourself as an expert in the space, a real human being that people can reach out to and get answers and bounce things off of. And I thought it was going to take like 5 years. I thought it was going to take like 5 years for people to get through this AI craze and then realize, oh crap, 23% of the time it's wrong. Like, I really thought it would take longer, but I'm already seeing people say, oh, well, I had reached out to Claude, I had reached out to ChatGPT, I'd reached out to Perplexity, I'd reached out to whatever. Can you just validate for me the results that I'm seeing or the results that I'm getting. We're already getting those calls. And so at Manana No Mas, we added a feature where we validate AI. And so we said, okay, fine. If you want to go down this path and use AI to build your tool, that's fine. I'm not going to put that in a site for you. Like I'm not going to put that into my server. I said, but if you believe that this is a equitable idea and you want to make sure it's right, we have staff, we can validate that AI, we can test that code for you, and then we can put it in a sample website and see if it breaks things, and then we can implement it for you. And so, and that's not free. By the way, that's not free. But so we offer that service, and we've already had people reach out to us and go, "Oh, so you guys will help with this because I wasn't sure I was doing it right." And that's what I'm saying. What I thought was going to take 5 years really took 2 years. And so I think it's important to understand when you reach out to people for these kinds of things, you want to know, where does this information come from? Why is this person the expert? Like in my case, I think now I'm up to 23 years. I think I'm up to like 23, 22. Oh crap, I can't remember. It's WordPress is 21 years old. So I've been with WordPress for 21 years. I was an early adopter in WordPress. I was in 2004. And so, you could look it up. My username in WordPress is Von Concepts. That was my old business name, Von Concepts. And so that name was reserved in WordPress in 2004. And so, so there's a lot. And then what I'm seeing now is I'm seeing people getting excited for things going back to the old ways. When I say going back to the old ways, I'm not just talking like a world without AI. Like in this case, I think there's some AI at work. But can I show you what my town is really excited about? This is what my town is really excited about right now. Right now. This is the second edition. So last week was the first one, and this week is the second one. So this came out September 4th. So I guess we're on the third week, right? So Thursday, September 4th. So that means today's Thursday, September 11th. I'm going to get the third one in my mailbox today. Okay. The level of excitement in my community because we have a printed newspaper getting delivered is off the rails. When I launched Von Concepts Performance Magazine in the year 2000, people thought I was crazy because I didn't have a print magazine. Think about how weird that is now to think about. In the year 2000, I launched Von Concepts Performance Magazine. It was about motorcycles, and we launched that, and we had a hard time getting sponsorships. We had a hard time selling ads because everybody said, "Where's the printed version? What bookstore will you be selling this magazine at?" I said, "Well, I'm not going to be selling it in a bookstore." And they said, "Oh, that'll never work." Right? And now you can't buy a decent motorcycle magazine at the bookstore, right? And now, 20 years later, people they're craving some retro things. We're craving things like a printed newspaper. People are printing books out of their Google Photos and getting a real book in their hand instead of swiping through their phone in Google Photos. There's a realness to this, and I think in a lot of ways we want to go back. One of the things I'm going to start doing on these calls is sharing with you where some of my knowledge and information comes from. And that's in here. Okay. Today I was in a book called 1 Timothy. 1 Timothy in Scripture is it's an interesting book because it's not written to us. It's important when you're reading Scripture to recognize who was this written to? Who was this even written to? Because it changes the perspective of what you're reading. And so 1 Timothy was written by Paul to Timothy. Timothy was like the head pastor, the bishop, the deacon. Like just think of someone high up in a church, any church that you go to, right? So it was written to a dude. It wasn't written to the people. It was written to a dude. And it is like, this is how you run the church, Timothy. And Timothy had the foresight to share it with the people. And over time, it became part of our canonized scripture. Um, so I get to this part. I'm in First Timothy. I'm in chapter 5. We go to a church where we're going through the whole New Testament this year, and so I thought maybe I would share some of this with you. And I'm not going to do a whole Bible study here, but I just want to cover a couple of things and why I think it's interesting. So today was chapter 5, and it says advice about widows, elders, and slaves. I'm not going to read the whole chapter, so don't panic. Um, about halfway through in verse 8, it says, if anyone does not provide for his relatives, especially for his immediate family, he has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. Do you remember it wasn't that far back where grandmothers and grandfathers would live with their kids in the house, and then grandchildren would be in the house? There would typically be 3 generations in a house at a time, right? Kids would share bedrooms. Grandparents would have a bedroom. The parents would have a bedroom. There would be family meals. People would eat around the table. We would have, cookout on weekends. And when I say we, I don't mean we in the sense that I'm in this, because I came from a broken family growing up in the 70s and 80s. And so, but I remember my friends down the street. My friends down the street had family. So I got to see, outside looking in, I got to see how having a connected family could work. But here's what's interesting. It starts to go into what constitutes a real widow. Even back then, right? We're talking like 50, 60 AD. Even back then, people would see the easy route and they would try to take the easy route instead of doing what was right. And so what would happen is, if there was a younger widow, in a lot of cases, she would say, well, I need to get on the assistance program. And they had an assistance program through the church. She'd say, well, I need to get on the assistance program. And she'd try to take assistance from the church. And this was getting to be a problem in more ways than one. Okay. So it says here, no widow may be put on the list unless she is over 60 years old. So it's expected that she's going to be either self-sufficient or supported by family until she's at least 60. Okay, has been faithful to her husband and is well known for her good deeds, such as bringing up children, showing hospitality, washing the feet of the saints, and helping those in trouble, and devoting herself to all kinds of good deeds. None of it is free. All of it takes effort from everybody. So until you have paid your dues, kept your nose clean, you're not on the list. You're just not on the list. That is a really hard thing for people to come up with. People see things all over the place and they say, well, that's not very Christian. You should help with that. And then you drive back to scripture and you go, wait a minute, I'm supposed to take care of my own family. If I don't take care of my own family, I'm worse than an unbeliever. And then, so if there's a widow in my family, I'm supposed to take care of her. Okay. And then you go through that. And then, so if a widow doesn't have family and she's over 60, she still has to be participating to be on the list. So we see that. But here's where it's interesting. It changes tone a little bit. And it says, as for younger widows, do not put them on such a list, for when their sensual desires overcome their dedication to Christ, they want to marry. Thus, they bring judgment on themselves. Right. And remember, once married, always married. So there's this thing about judgment and okay, but here's the deal. What Paul is saying is younger ladies are going to remarry anyway. Let them get remarried. Let them have the kids. Do that thing. They're still not on the list. They're not on the widow's support list because they're going to hook up. They're going to have another life. Okay. But here's where it says, besides, they can get into the habit of being idle and going about from house to house. Not only do they become idlers, but also gossips and busybodies, saying things they ought not to. So I counsel younger widows to marry, to have children, to manage their homes, and to give the enemy no opportunity for slander. Some have, in fact, already turned away to follow Satan. Because if they didn't want to remarry and they wanted to support themselves in those days, 50 AD, they only had a few choices for income, right? And if they chose some of those ways for income, that would be following the path of Satan. I'm just being blunt, okay? But it's interesting to me. I have a daughter. I have a 21-year-old daughter. And there are times where I know that she wants me to do something. There are times where I know that she's looking for a little extra support. I know that there are times when she'll say something to me and she's just looking for that little extra nudge. And in most of those cases, I ignore the nudge. And sometimes my wife and I will have a discussion about it. And I've ignored the nudge. And my wife will say, well, that was a nudge, not in those languages, not in that language, but she'll say that was a nudge. And I say, well, she's got to learn. She's got to grow. She's got the ability. She's able bodied. She can work on this herself. There are other solutions. There are things. And that's kind of what this is talking about here. When we make things too easy, when there's no skin in the game, things aren't appreciated, and we revert back to aberrant behavior, being gossips, being busybodies, idle hands, right, is what we're talking about. You'll notice I'm very active. I'm 58 years old. I always tell people how old I am. I'm 58 years old, and I've got all these things going today, right? At least 5 shows a week. We've got customers that we manage, and I'm trying to grow this apprenticeship program here in my community. I'm also very involved with the church and with the entrepreneur groups here in town. So I keep busy. There's a lot going on. When we are putting forth new products and we are making new messaging on behalf of our company, this is what is what drives a lot of what we're doing. So what made people in my town excited? A newspaper. What information guides me internally? Honestly, it's a lot of scripture. Okay. What did I see on the news yesterday that turned my stomach? Crazy violence and a horrible outcome. Crazy violence and a horrible outcome. What am I seeing from society? I'm seeing things that aren't so good. Okay. We're seeing a lot of assaults. We're seeing a lot of violence. We're seeing a lot of rhetoric between the left and the right. We're seeing a lot of, we're just seeing a lot of nonsense. For the average citizen, we're seeing a lot of nonsense. Just as I believe people that were in awe of AI a year ago, 2 years ago, are going to start to crave that human experience, that human consulting, just as I believe that people are going to want that human connection more and more. Just as I am thrilled that people are happy about a newspaper, I feel the same about a lot of the things that we do in business. I feel that more and more people are going to want to drive to a personal thing. When I see what society is doing right now, I personally believe that we're going to get to the fringe of all of this nonsense. And we're going to start to come back and we're going to go, you know what? We got to recenter things. We got to get back on track. And if it means going old school a little bit, maybe we go old school a little bit. Take care of grandma. Okay? Take care of grandma. Take care of your kids. Stay with your wife, even if she acts crazy. Stay with your husband, even if he's a jerk. Because these are phases. This is normal in life for people to ebb and flow and change. And when we don't stay the path, when we bail when things get hard, we make it a mess. And as a society, we have allowed government and we have allowed society in general to tell us, oh no, sweetheart, if he doesn't, honor the ground you walk on, you leave him. You just leave him. If he doesn't provide for you enough, you just leave him. Go on with your bad self, girl, girl power. And realistically, family needs to be family. Dudes need to stay loyal. Dudes need to do what they can at home, to lead, to provide, and do the things that come natural. Women need to support, be partners in the plan, and get through the rough patches. And I think we're going to see more and more of that as people get more and more tired of what's around them. Now, as for us up in the game with Manana No Mas, new shows, new content, changes in our pricing strategy, especially for our local startups. You're going to see that rolling out over the next month or so. We've already got our Black Friday specials planned out. And I'm pretty thrilled. Pretty thrilled. I'm going to wrap this up here. We're at 30 minutes. Um, somber days. Somber days. Uh, the shooting, the killing, the assassination yesterday of Charlie Kirk has really reshaped my thinking, amplified some things, but also cooled some things. And if I'm going to be honest with you, as I wrap this up, you're going to hear more and more of why I think the way I think, or why I support the things I do as far as being an entrepreneur, chasing success, the way that I chase success, the reason I believe that we are successful. They say the average agency makes like $20,000 a year, the average digital agency, right? Because think about what it takes to really become a digital agency. It's almost nothing, right? So the average digital agency makes like 20 grand a year. And so in those terms, we are wildly successful at Manana No Mas. And so why is that? Right. And I think moving forward with these segments, I'm going to be more direct about why I think these things are. And hopefully people take away some gold nuggets from this. Like I said, switching things up a notch, but I think we're overdue for that. So have yourselves a wonderful Thursday. Finish the week strong. Have a great weekend. And I'll probably see you next week. Bye-bye.